Government forces clash with Houthi rebels in Ma'rib and inflict heavy losses on them. Massam project continues demining activities during December. Public service workers protest against unpaid salaries and hard living conditions. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shaza Abdullah. Fighting in Ma'rib is still going on between the government forces and the Houthi rebels. Despite the rebels' constant attempts to control the city, they are being inflicted with heavy losses on the hand of the government forces and tribes. More on story is within this report.
New movements carried out by the Houthi militia on the fronts of Ma'rib. The movements brought in reinforcements from Al-Bayda governorate after the Houthi lost thousands of their members on the borders of the governorate. But these reinforcements were an easy target for the airstrikes.
Their losses are numerous in lives and equipment. They are supported by their ally Iran. The equipment is running short and we are close to defeat them. We assure the Yemeni people that their end will be in the areas between Assad and Juba.
In Al-Arif and Al-Amud, the militia pushed in successive attacks toward the positions of the government forces and tribesmen. Battles broke out between both sides and lasted for more than 5 hours. The battles ended with the killing of 27 Houthi members and others were wounded. As for the Eastern Balak, the heroes of the government forces carried out a tight ambush for Houthi groups that tried to penetrate towards Al-Ramla area. It ended with the killing of the infiltrating elements and the escape of the rest of Houthis.
Manqaba line is called by the resistance as the red line. After that line, Houthi militia is inflicted with heavy losses. After that line, the dead Houthi bodies are scattered there and no one comes to recover them. They've big losses in lives and equipment. Still, they are pushing hard to cross this line. They keep telling they have broken this line, but they are away from this death line.
From time to time, the battles intensify on various fronts of Ma'rib, so that hit and run on both sides remain the dominant factor. More human and material losses falling on this front every day, so that the dreams and hopes of the new imams to advance towards Ma'rib is looming to fail.
A source said big numbers of the joint forces arrived to Wadi Hassan in the outskirts of Zanzibar. The sources outlined that the forces are on their way to Atak, the capital of Shabwa in the center of Yemen. He added that the joint forces will go to the west of Shabwa to liberate it from the Houthi control. Moving to Taiz, Yemeni government forces backed by the tribes engaged in fierce battles against Houthi militia in the city. Confrontations were centered in Al Tatwir area in Maqbana, west of Taiz. In addition, coalition jets targeted new gatherings of the Houthi militia and the air raids killed and injured dozens of Houthis, including leaders. Also in Maqbana, a civilian was killed and others were injured by Houthi shelling targeting a house. The coalition revealed that more than 30,000 members of the Iranian-backed Houthi militia have been killed in confrontations since the start of this year. This came in a statement to the official spokesman for the coalition, Brigadier General Turki al-Malki. He also disclosed evidence of the involvement of Iran and the Lebanese terrorist militia Hezbollah in the war in Yemen through their constant support for the Houthi militia. The coalition also said that 3 Houthi vehicles were destroyed in air raids that were launched in Ma'rib in the last 48 hours. Massam project announced it had removed more than 2,200 mines during the 4th week of December. This brings the number of mines that were cleared in December to more than 8,000 mines. The total mines removed by Massam since the operation started increased to nearly 300,000 mines. A local official in Hodeidah revealed that a leak in safer tanker in the Red Sea has happened. The deputy of the governor said the leak took place in the oil pipeline extending to the safer tanker and warned of a disaster that would happen in the Red Sea. He called the countries neighboring the Red Sea to take quick measures towards this environmental disaster. Safer is a floating tanker that is stationed in the Red Sea and loaded with oil. United Nations has repeatedly called upon Houthis to allow a change for the body of the tanker. More on the story is within this report.
An abandoned oil tanker in the Red Sea containing 1.1 million barrels of oil is at risk of spilling and leaving millions of people in Yemen without water. The FCO Saifa was abandoned approximately 5 nautical miles off the coast of Yemen in 2015 due to the ongoing civil war in the country. The tanker is at risk of leaking due to the deterioration of its hull catching fire through the buildup of volatile gases or through a direct attack. Talks between Houthi rebels and the UN-recognized government of Yemen and the UN about the potential spill have stalled despite warnings. A recent study led by researchers at Stanford University School of Medicine used thousands of simulations to predict the impact an oil spill would have on public health. The researchers modeled the potential spill under a variety of weather conditions, taking into account past wind patterns, currents, sea temperature, salinity, and seasonal and daytime fluctuations in weather. This could exacerbate shortages of critical supplies and could disrupt 38% of Yemen's fuel needs, causing fuel prices to spike and risking the closure of hospitals. Clean water supply to millions of people would be threatened due to contamination of plants. All of Yemen's Red Sea fisheries would be at risk. Some 8.4 million people may not be able to access food aid in the event of a catastrophe, while all of Yemen's Red Sea fisheries would also be at risk. In the end, if Houthis' obstinance continues and the UN team of maintenance would not have access to this aid oil tanker, a disaster would threaten not only Yemen but the entire region.
Staff in the University of Aden, Abiyan, Lahj and Al-Dala organized a protest to demand their financial payments. They asked the authorities to assume their duties and quickly pay their salaries. This report has more details.
A protest stand for the unions of Aden University was held to demand the rights of its members. On Sunday, the unions of employees and contractors of the universities of Aden, Lahj, Abiyan and Al-Dala organized a protest to demand their rights, improve their salaries and put an end to their living suffering. The unions demanded the return of the salary of a faculty member and teaching assistant to its value in hard currency, and bridging the gap between the salary of a faculty member and an assistant faculty member, providing job grades for non-academic appointed employees, and speeding up transfer and set limit of academically appointed employees.
Till now, the suffering hasn't ended. However, it keeps increasing. The country is going through tragic circumstances. Therefore, we hope that the Prime Minister will consider the demands of the university staff so that everyone can obtain their rights and have the ability of giving in return. University of Aden is considered one of the most important educational foundations in Yemen.
The statement issued by the stand said that the salaries of university employees did not keep pace with the huge rise in prices of necessary and basic commodities, and that the salary is no longer enough for transportation. According to the statement, the University of Aden had responsibility for coordinating with the government and relevant authorities towards easing the living conditions of its members.
We're just demanding to have a decent life. They kept telling us that we're going to take our salaries in dollars, but we don't want to. We didn't ask for dollars. We need equality. We need to live a decent life so that we can give and perform in our jobs. How would I go to my university without having transportation, meals for our kids, or money to pay rents for our homes? Rent outweighs our salaries.
We demand a better salary. It's necessary and they need to take it into consideration. Our salaries are not enough to support our families and children or take transportation to work.
The protesters affirmed that they would continue to strike until the concerned authorities, represented by the Prime Minister, the Arab Alliance and the international community, respond to their just human rights demands. The protesters threatened that if their demands were not met, they would escalate and stand in front of Al-Ma'ashik Palace Gate.
Coming next. Despite the hardship of war, the 4th book fair opens in Taiz with crowd of visitors.
اضطرينا نحن نغادر من ذي وزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محويتني الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. In spite of the hard civil war that has waged in Yemen since 2015, passion for books and for knowledge does not seem to have faded. Taiz's 4th book fair opened with thousands of books and many activities which will continue until the end of this month. This report has more details.
The 4th Taiz Book Fair was opened in Al Ta'awan Park, with more than 7 publishing houses and participating parties, and 14 new publications for the Culture Office. The product of the great writers in Taiz and a group of young creators, which was signed and presented for the first time and made the exhibition distinct from its predecessors, as it contains thousands of books in various scientific, literary and cultural fields.
ما يحدث في تعز اليوم هو ما أسسنا له وبدأناه.
What happens in Taiz today is what we've established almost 5 years ago. We are now in the 4th book fair in Taiz, and no other city has presented a big cultural event like this. Therefore, we have to preserve it and present it as good as we can.
In Balkis Hall, the opening ceremony of the International Fine Arts Exhibition, which included about 80 plastic paintings of different artists from Yemen and 3 other Arab countries, under the title The World Paints Culture and Peace in Taiz, which was in response to the Houthi militia's transformation of the House of Culture in Sana'a into a commercial center, which is what was met with widespread condemnation and warnings that the authorities in Taiz would proceed in the same direction.
قدمنا ونشدنا البارحة وكانت رسالة كبيرة.
We've appealed and sent a big message from the people of Taiz to all cultural symbols in the city to transform this beautiful place in Ta'awan Park, which is the only public park available now, into a cultural house in response and as a message to what the Houthis are doing of distorting the cultural works and the transformation of the House of the Culture in Sana'a into a mere trade house lying in the name of orphans and sometimes cancer too.
The 4th Taiz Book Fair witnessed a great turnout for the public of intellectuals, researchers and university students. The halls were unable to accommodate visitors, which indicates that Taiz gets sick but does not die.
اليوم نحن هنا في نادي تعز في معرض الكتب الرابع.
Today we're here in Taiz Club in the 4th Book Fair. We came today to read and to prove to the world that despite the siege and war in Yemen, we are still equipped with culture and we love to learn everything new.
Young children in the 4th Taiz Book Fair had a share of attention through the children's studio and exhibition that was accompanied by a cultural mix of theatrical and musical performances and intellectual and literary seminars. In the end, Yemen will always strive to be better. Despite the conflict and war people face, hope is their only way out of this ordeal.
Yemen Journals Trania Abdullah was awarded RT Prize for her documentary Life Terminated, covering the ongoing armed conflict in southwestern Yemen. The RT award was initiated in 2018 to honor Khalid Al-Khatib, the journalist who was killed on duty in the Syrian city of Hims. Since its inception, the award has been given to a number of correspondents reporting from the front lines and risking their lives to share first-hand accounts of conflicts worldwide. Despite the fighting, the World Bank has continued to run many projects in Yemen. Those projects focus mainly on restoring the infrastructure of health, educational facilities, which have been damaged. More on story is within this report.
The conflict in Yemen, which started in March 2015, has affected the capacity of local institutions to enforce laws, including laws related to environmental protection and management. The private sector was also hit. Environmental consulting firms, individual consultants and universities providing resources and capacity for Yemen to safeguard project operations have all been affected. Despite the conflict, the World Bank has continued to support Yemen and managed to maintain environmental standards for the projects it finances in the country. World Bank teams and UN agencies have been working together through two local agencies, the Social Fund for Development and Public Works Project, since 2016. These agencies have started to build their institutional capacity to improve their own environmental and social measures, including those on occupational health and safety. It also works to restore community assets that provide socio-economic benefits, to sustain and scale up the business operations of financial service providers and micro, small and medium enterprises, and to ensure the oversight, reporting and quality of projects. Preserving these sectors and strengthening them prepares Yemen for the recovery and reconstruction that will one day take place after conflict, and makes sure that the development projects and intervention that the bank supports both today and in the future are sustainable and environment friendly.
Stations for gas cylinders in Aden closed their doors before consumers. The owners of gas stations refrained from selling cylinders to citizens who demanded a price reduction in light of the recovery of the rial. Local sources accused the Yemeni government of receiving large financial commissions from gas agents and foreign companies in exchange for allowing them to adopt a price that serves their interests. The Yemeni rial value improved against hard currencies. Banking sources said the price of the dollar declined today to record 836 for purchase and 877 for sale. Experts attributed this improvement to decrease in the volume of demand for hard currency, in addition to news that the central bank will receive a financial deposit. The National Committee Against Coronavirus recorded 3 new cases of the pandemic. Committee officials said that 1 case was recorded in Shabwa, 1 in Ma'rib, and 1 in Hadramaut. Also, 1 dead case was recorded and 5 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 10,118, including 1,984 deaths and 7,010 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Government forces clash with Houthi rebels in Ma'rib and inflict heavy losses on them. Massam project continues demining activities during December. Public service workers protest against unpaid salaries and hard living conditions. This is the end of the news. For more, join us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Yemen Today English. Thank you for watching.